Farrell, who's the president of the Firefighters Union. And he's got a hard stop, he's gotta go save somebody. Gonna give him the floor first, please.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to be here, first of all. Thanks to everybody showing up. Morning. Nice. I'm everyone that's in. Okay. Person that's been doing the bulk of the work on our end of things. Good to be here today. So yeah. I'll come out. So Keely said, my name is Scott Farrell. I'm president of Local 106, which represents roughly 300 firefighters in Whatcom County, including the ones that serve this area. North Whatcom. I've been a paramedic in Whatcom County. I hired an O2 and worked for the city of Nottingham. Whatcom County paramedics until for my medic class ago. Paramedic it's 2004, serving all of Whatcom County. Does that speak louder?
Yes,
okay.
please.
Yeah, thank you. We'll close the door. Yeah, so proud to work in this county. We have an awesome system. I'll skip there. I made a quick set of notes just because I didn't have a lot of time to prepare. But we have an awesome system of volunteer part-time folks that we don't represent. Our full-time professional firefighters that work on the line every day, our chiefs, our commissioners, our elected officials right now. We have a really good collaboration with all the groups that serve in the county. Yeah, we have great fire chiefs right now. We have awesome communication back and forth. We're really lucky. And as president of the local right now, I'm spoiled by our members, our fire chiefs, our commissioners, and everybody. It's not the toughest time to be the president of local 106 right now. And I'm thankful for that. I'm not asking for anything different, honestly. So, like I said, we represent all the firefighters in Whatcom County professional firefighters. We're thrilled with the collaboration between all the groups that are trying to get this levy passed for this district. We have a couple other ones going on as well at the same time. The simple answer, like I represent a labor organization, so most people are going to say, well, it benefits the labor organization having a levy pass. Well, I'll be honest, it does, right? Why? Well, number one, our primary goal is public safety, public service. Right. And we want to do a good job. We want to have the people, the equipment, the fire apparatus, and the stations to be able to do that, and the leadership which we have. So what does the levy do? It helps in all those cases, is to provide the stuff that we need to actually provide the service that we want to provide in all the areas that we work in. I guess one of the issues here is the fire station here, which is close by. That's one of the things that I mentioned. I don't want to step on Chief Vanderbeek's toes, but obviously the most critical calls, response times are critical, whether it's house fires, cardiac arrest, and those things. We have an empty station up the road here. So who comes next? It's the next fire station. Well, if they're already on a call, who comes next? Well, it's the next fire station. And that's how we backfill with each other. And and this area is not unique. It's the entire county right now that's experiencing this because of the population growth and the demand for service. We had apparatus that are stationed in the city of Bellingham yesterday going out to Ferndale to answer 911 calls. That's not how the system is supposed to work. And it's just been massive growth. And so we want to avoid those types of things. Now, the labor side of things, how does it impact labor? As president of local 106, I take really serious our members' safety. And when you have a house fire and 3 people are arriving by themselves and are there on house fire for 15 minutes by themselves, and And generally house fires, depending on the type of fire or commercial fires, you are looking for 20, 30 people and a dozen apparatus to show up to fight that fire efficiently. The amount of tasks that needs to happen, whether it's rescue or fire suppression or all the different, you are looking for multiple, just to bring somebody out is 5, 6 people really to do it effectively. When they're not able to help you. So firefighter safety, obviously increased funding, more people to the fire quicker, puts our members less at risk. And we haven't had a budget ask yet. But the other thing that generally, which is really an impact on the fire service right now, again, our members not so different than all across the country. We are getting ravaged by cancer right now due to the cost of job conditions and work conditions. And I speak about this, that I get an email every day from a local across the country of a firefighter in the town. It's 70% of our deaths right now are cancer. I had cancer years ago. Not a single member of my family has ever had it. We have great coverage in those states, or most coverages. More funding means more ability for us to ask the districts and cities for improved cancer testing, preventative cancer. So what we do is we have less cancer diagnoses to start with, or early diagnosis, early prevention, and we get our members back to work, being able to come back to work, which helps the public, clearly helps our member and helps the districts, instead of having people cancer undiagnosed, late stage, off the job for months, if not years, never coming back to work. So funding is important for us, for our members' safety. So first, public service, public safety, our ability to serve you, I also represent the organization, our safety and our members' health. Well, so now that's top of mind, just because everywhere we go right now, we're talking about that, hearing about that. Just by virtue of my position, I get those emails every day, all over the country. We're talking about 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds. It is not the 60-year-old firefighter that's still working. It is people that are in their 30s. So ultimately, I'll take any questions that people want to ask. Scott Brown, our vice president, our primary member that has been working with the groups to also get this levy passed. We're putting both, and we're willing to put more. And what we need to do as far as financial commitments, our people, our connections to try and get this passed for this community, for our members, for the public. We're efficient in those ways to help, and we will help in any way that we can. I'll ask any questions. I mentioned that Julia, she's free to put my number, my email in the emails that go out, and anybody can call me anytime. I'm not going to do this today because I don't want to talk, but I can talk all day. Honestly, I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about the members and their public. I've been doing the job for almost 25 years. I love doing it still. I love coming to work. People say, "Hey, when are you going to retire?" I don't have the time. I love the union work. They make it easy right now. Please keep doing that. But yeah, there has never been a time in Walking County where we just have collaboration on so many issues. And at all levels, commissioners, we have communication, and we be able to do things like this together very easily. So yeah.
Excuse me, would increased funding lead to any more safety measures that you could implement to keep you safer from the cancer, or are you already doing as much as you can do with protective devices?
The main thing that's being focused right now is preventative testing and early testing. We try and get that built into our collective bargaining agreements. In some districts and cities we can. We do have different like HSA accounts that we can utilize. North Walkcombe specifically, and then the local a couple of years ago brought business in Tawakam County, and we opened up testing for our members, preventative testing. We did that in the North Walk. Did you guys? Yeah, North Walk has done it several times. So preventative testing, now some of those things, the way they're being done right now is it is optional. So our members say, hey, yeah, I want to come that Saturday and get tested. If it's in our collective bargaining agreement, part of our annual physicals, then they have to go through it, which I would prefer honestly, because some people are like, 33, I really need to get tested. You know, I got a golf game that day or what have you. So the best thing for us is to have it just built in. And there's no guarantee. Clearly, there's no guarantee. It's just something that's top of mind need. One of the benefits that could come from it. Better funding, generally, those are important things to us to keep our members safe. Sir?
Yeah, fundamental question is who can vote for this? And the hidden meaning behind that question is that a lot of people who live in Semiahmoo and around here, this is not their primary residence, yet it's an asset they wish to protect. And their health is at stake when they do live here, or if you can't respond. And yet, are they able to vote for this or not?
I think you have to be a registered voter. Registered voter would be the simple answer.
Because on the last levy, there was not a large participation, as I understand, in Semiahmoo. And have you guys analyzed that in terms of those who are registered versus not registered voting? And is there a way in which if we go door knocking, is there a way in which we can identify who's a resident and who's not a resident before we door knock?
Well, we know the number of registered voters that we have. And with the help of the chief and the fire commissioners, we know what percentage in the last levy voted and didn't vote, but by raw numbers, not by name. Okay. And you're right, we need better participation of those that can vote, because you don't have a voice, right? So those of us who can vote, we need to participate. And so that's what this whole initiative is about. The SRA does not endorse a voting position, but we are the conduit of information from the firefighters, from the chief, from the district, from the commissioners. We can funnel information to our members through SRA This Week, through our newsletter. And one of the things that the union has done for us is they sent out a videographer for people who wanted to volunteer to speak about the levy, for them to be taped, so that we can send out those communications as well for those that want to see it. If you don't want to see it, don't click the link. Okay. So, but yeah, we're working on that because we've got to have participation.
We talked about something in addition just even this morning. Our local 106, you're thinking doesn't want to leave a small amount of money on the table. Like consistent any way we can to make this path. We can say vote yes. We're not constrained by being a government official or a fire chief. We can say vote yes, so we can be partners, or and quite frankly, we can email mailers. All those things work. I know just to get to the point where it's at right now, a ton of time and energy and effort by our VP and others that have been helping out. If there needs to be something else, all they need to do is ask. I have to answer the 14 other people on an executive board. I don't get to make all the decisions, but I can certainly the overall tone on that board is, hey, let's not leave a little bit on the table here. We're gonna get this. Let's do what we can do. We just have another idea this morning. Sorry, behind you.
So a question, and I believe this is directed to the board. In the event of fails, which I hope it doesn't, of course,
We don't say that way.
no, I don't. Would it be possible for the association members to vote to increase our levy going to the association in order to pass funds along to the fire district?
Well, that is something that Fire Commissioner Anthony is looking at. All the fire commissioners, obviously, they have to look at, okay, what's our plan B if this doesn't pass? So I don't have an answer for you yet, but hopefully I don't need to have an answer for you. That's where we're going with this. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
I know that our county council just recently passed a public safety sales tax. Are you pursuing in your budget pursuing the access to that funding?
The way the state law is written, those types of things are for law enforcement.
Oh.
The fire district is an independent tax authority. The county council does something fairness.
Yeah.
Unless it's an unfunded mandate.
Yeah, I'll follow up to my question. Have you folks analyzed the last election to see where the most effort is needed to get the vote out to succeed on this? I.e., have you been able to target areas where we can go out and canvass, or?
For the first time, we, in partnership, hired a digital marketing company, all political, the mention of fire voting records, lists, and they have the ability to do that. There's a plan, podcast, streaming, texting. They were successful in Ferndale passing the levy earlier this year. So they can break this down. So, and there's some slight bleed over down outside of those precincts to somebody across the street per se. But yeah, they have a ability that then we have other resources through the International Association of Firefighters, get mailing with the fact that you're talking about, we have access.
And is there an organization within Semiahmoo or this area to foster canvassing and knocking on doors to get the word out? Or what is the association doing? What is the fire district doing?
So we've checked into this, and one of the board members is an attorney, and he's looked at our bylaw and says we can't do soliciting. So we're trying to use other avenues of getting information to people other than door knocking. And Lucas,
If I may.
Yeah.
If I may, I'm actually the board member and the chair of the Safety and Environment Committee. What I'm hearing from you is that you're willing to participate in canvassing and sharing that information. We have been sending, we've created a lot of material, letters that are going out on the SRA today. By looking at the click-throughs and the metrics, we're seeing that people aren't reading the emails as much as we want to. And to your last statement, had Semiahmoo voted in greater numbers, it would have made a difference on last election. So to that end, the material can be made available to anybody that can canvass and wants to canvass. We will provide you with the literature, the one-pagers, the two-pagers, articles, and if you want to pull that information, please distribute to Delia's last point. We can't do it ourselves, but if you would like to take the initiative, we'll be more than happy to make that available to you and promulgate. I was doing some test questions last week to people in my neighborhood, asking if they'd heard, and their comment was no. And because of the demographics, lots of folks actually don't look at email, and that physical pamphlets would be more effective to get reach. To the degree that you want to do that, just let you know where to get the information, and please make that available. Great, thank you. And so this pamphlet here will tell the story. And there's a series of 10 articles that breaks down those numbers and you can understand it. And you can use those as talking points as you do your own canvassing. So thank you very much for what apparently it looks like you're volunteering. And any other volunteers? Any other volunteers? Please do. We'll also be reaching out to NHOA members, presidents, for them to do that to their community halls. Okay. And by the way, my name is Rick.
Thank you very much. Jennifer. The other thing that we're doing is we are, coordinating efforts with Birch Bay Village through their safety and security committee. Their general manager used to be our general manager, so we're sharing all of this information, and Luke is the one to put all this together. I mean, he's phenomenal. We're sharing that information with them so they can use it. Bottom line is the east part of the county outvotes us on the west side. Okay, and so they don't have as much of a vested interest in getting the station open here, but the people on the west side certainly do. I mean, think about if you're in Birch Bay Village and you're having a heart attack, Station 62 on the Parkway can drive through Horizon and get to you faster. Then a lot of times the Birch Bay Station can, because they have to do the 25-mile-an-hour thing, you know. So, so we are coordinating efforts as a community.
The signs are all cool. I know it's like people don't click, but if there's one of those in your front yard and your people outside, they're working in the yard, I mean, you hear half the neighborhood walking by all day long.
This is courtesy of the union. They're free. We have right here. So if you want one of these in your yard, come over here and take one.
And you can put them up now, it's 4 months before an election.
I mean, that's probably.
Right. And we can't put it on SRA property, if you consider them a private property. And if you need to order more, we'll order more. We're even thinking about, customizing some that have, like a picture of the fire station on it. It says, open the fire station, vote yes.
Yeah.
Like that simple. So, and that's where we're trying to work together. They're very supportive. You know, I have the question back here about what it feels. We're pretty determined, until I say that it's to make everyone aware. I think one, like, the reason it failed, honestly, I was on the board in 2024. I think why there was lower participation is two things. One, it was a primary ballot. A lot of people don't pay attention until this is for the general election. Two, not enough people knew that the fire station, the opening of the fire station was on the ballot. I think we would have seen much more participation had that been widely known. So that's what we're trying to do this time, is get the information out there so that everybody knows that the fire station is on the ballot.
Question? The fire chief can check the window to open for reopening this building.
Opening it, fully out, it's never been. Yeah. And it's gonna be, if it passes, the chief is gonna talk about this. If it passes, it will be fully staffed for fire and medical emergencies on a 24/7 basis. So, I mean, it's in our backyard, literally.
If it passes, what would be the timeline for that? The other thing I was gonna say is,
It's a good question, I'm sorry, but can we save that for the chief? That's what he's gonna
Sure.
talk about.
Anything else?
I was gonna say perhaps to generate interest, doing an open house, getting people through there.
There is a problem.
Good idea.
There you go.
Well, you've got a lot of people here that would volunteer, that, you know, could bring refreshments and things to make it informative and.
Yeah, and we are doing an open house at the Birch Bay Station, because if the lead passes, there are a lot of upgrades that are moving to that, so we can possibly do this. That's and it's shameful. So, yes.
Yeah, have you thought about going after the developer? I guess we're gonna have what, 200, 300, 400 new homes going in out there. Going after the developer and having him build a station, which is not unusual. I'm a firefighter, I've been in the service 40 years, I'm retired. And I saw that where I came from. They had the developer build a station, on a lot that he contributed. And, as a show of good faith to the community, and it's a write-off for him.
Yes.
And
And
he's
that's-
causing this, all this new construction is causing infrastructure stress that we're paying for.
Right.
They're building and they're cutting and leaving.
Right. And that's how this station got built.
Okay.
David Cyree actually developed Semiano. They built the fire station, so the idea that it would eventually be manned, but the expensive part is the manning of the station, and people can talk about that. So, but that's what the fire.
The developer.
Yeah.
If there's any. Yeah.
Thank you. We did. Into the fire. Because a lot of the questions that are being asked will be in his presentation, will be answered in his presentation. And, so I give you Chief Jason Vanderbilt.
See the firewise.
You want to do fireworks? Okay. Oh, whatever he wants. Okay, so, you've probably noticed that we've been doing a lot of ground fuel mitigation in our buffer areas. And also this week, we're taking down trees, all of the dead trees this week and next week in our buffer areas. Well, that's largely because of the efforts of this gentleman. Okay? And Vanderbeam introduced us to him because we said, how do we, as a community, do a better job of wildfire resilience? And so Robert came out and helped, the Safety and Environment Committee create a 5-year plan. And go to each one of our buffers and go to each one of the NHOAs that were interested in participating and come up with a plan for the NHOA. And so basically, and he's also been very instrumental in helping us with funding through grants. So last year we got a micro grant for $4,000 and we added it to our budget for tree maintenance, and we were able to do the buffer at Prescott Village. So that everybody could see, okay, if we do the buffers, this is what it's gonna look like. I've got some pictures on my slide. And it's still gonna look natural when we, when the foliage comes out, it's still gonna look natural and nice, but it's just gonna be safer. And then this year, we also qualified for a $4,000 micro grant, but we just qualified with the help of Robert and his counterpart in Olympia, Kirk Provok, for an additional $25,000 of reimbursement funding. So SRA, so what that means to us is we are able now, with that reimbursement grant, we're able to do work this year, like bringing down all those dead trees that would have been postponed to next year's budget cycle, because we wouldn't have had the money in the budget to do it this year. But because of the additional $25,000, we can do it this year. So we're that much further ahead and get pretty much all the initial mitigation work done. And then we can focus on long-term maintenance of what we have done. So the important thing that both Washington DNR and Conservation District stress is this, we're doing what we can as an SRA, as an organization to keep us safe, but the most important thing is what you do within your home, your own home structure, and within a 100-foot perimeter around your home. And so that is what Robert is here to talk with us. I give you Robert Walter of the Washington Conservation.
Thanks, Delia. I'm gonna try to stand off to the side and I'm gonna be distracted because the speaker behind me is gonna be an echo. I don't know if you're hearing that too, but. Sorry, nuts. I don't know if it's the door or if it's something with the speaker system. Is that better? We'll figure it out when possible. We'll have to turn it up. I got a couple of videos in here that have some audio, I'll have to share it. But anyway, I am Robert Walters. I'm the Community Wildfire Resilience Specialist for the Washington Conservation District. And I was supposed to mention that through an interlocal agreement, we also provide the same services throughout Sullivan County. So we cover 4,938 square miles. We've got 2 vehicles to do it. So, quick background on what is a conservation district. We were born out of the necessity following the Dust Bowl in the 1930s. It's a non-regulatory, locally led subdivision of state government designed to help property owners manage their natural resources like soil, water, and forest. Wildfire comes into it because we added people to the wheel of things that we want to environmentally serve. And so wildfire plans affect people and our structures. So that's why we are a part of conservation. Our wildfire risk reduction program with conservation districts built on 4 facets. The first one like that is one in the top left corner, empowering landowners. We offer tools and resources, access to experts and workshops. This is more of a presentation in the workshop, but we do have public workshops where you can come in and learn more hands-on stuff about how to prepare your home and your property for wildfire. We support communities, which we've been doing in Semiahmoo for 3 years now, personally, through wildfire planning, the Firewise USA program, which we'll get into in a little bit, and fuel production program, like you've been seeing going on throughout the community. Evaluating wildfire risk. This is where I put in my plug. If you go exit today, table out there is a sign-up sheet for an individual home risk assessment, where myself or Alexis comes out to your house free of charge. No obligation to take any of the actions that we suggest. We walk around your home with you and we identify ignition vulnerabilities for wildfire. About a week later, you get a report that outlines those ignition vulnerabilities and gives you mitigation actions for each of them. We never come back out and inspect, but often we have people call us and want to show off what they've done. And we're happy to come out and walk through with you again. And then finally, we engage our partners. We work with DNR, Forest Service, BLM, our local fire districts, fire chiefs, fire marshals, Department of Health on smoke awareness and things like that. We know from experience that if we all share our collaboration and knowledge, we're always going to have a better outcome than just trying to go it alone. Some of these slides might look familiar. For those of you who've seen my presentation a few times, I tried to get down just to the nitty gritty so we can get into more detailed stuff here. But understanding how wildfire spreads is pretty important. So almost all wildfires start on the ground, which I will work. But we get a fire on the ground, it needs continuous fuel, right? And what we say is once we have fire on the ground, we want to keep it on the ground until we can get it contained and extinguished. Well, sometimes before we can get there, these continuous fuels find the ladder fuels, which is the understory stuff, the scrub brush and stuff that touches the lower branches of a tree. It creates a fuse or a ladder fuels. You go up into the lower understory stuff, and then it climbs to the tops of the trees. And once we have fire in the tops of the trees, we get a lot of ember production. And embers are those little things that fly around. They, in a severe fire, intense fire, it's just, they call them fire brands or ember storms. It looks just like a storm, but it's fire flying through the air. And then those embers kind of fall around and they get on continuous fuels in the ground and they start a fire on the ground. That ground fire gets in ladder fuels and crawls to the top of the trees. It throws embers that land on the ground and start another fire. And so you see we have a feedback loop here that's not a good thing. And so that's why we say when we get fire on the ground, we want to. And then some of the factors we need to be aware of is where we live. In Semiahmoo, you are definitely in the WUI. And that's the wildland urban interface or the wildland urban intermix. And there's some minor differences between the two. Basically, in the interface, we bulldoze down the whole area, build a bunch of houses, leave a perimeter of wildland. In the intermix, we bulldoze down a road or a driveway or two and build a house and leave it surrounded by trees. In my opinion, Semiahmoo is right in between. Kind of have both, right? We clear a large area, but we try to leave a lot of native vegetation and stuff that now that it's been unchecked for a few decades can become a problem because it is fuel. Anything that can burn is potential fuel. And if you watch the news over the last decade or so, you know that wildfire in Western Washington is becoming an every year occurrence. It's no longer something that we watch on Como News happening over in Wenatchee and Spokane. Big fire in Lake Whatcom 3 years ago. On April 20th, we had 2 fires, Lyman and Bender Road. The Bender Road one went across the border into Canada because fire don't care about lines on a map. And then if you tried to go to Winthrop the last couple summers, it's a really long trip through Wenatchee instead of being able to go through the North Cascades Pass because we had fire that had the road blocked. There's many factors that work together. that push this fire occurrence more frequently into Washington? Sorry, folks. Need a Delia to come up closer. Right? So what are those changing conditions that's increasing our wildfire here in Western Washington? Well, a lot of them are climate involved. We have increasing air temperatures. Today's kind of a good example of that. Although it's June, it's the first really warm day we've had in about a week. So, but you know, we get into those heat domes in August and September that we've been experiencing for the last 5 or 6 years. We have less summer rain. We used to not go the 40 days and 40 nights without rain. That happens to us about every summer now. We have earlier snow melt, meaning all the stuff up there on the glacier and on the mountain is melting earlier. So we don't have that sustained ground moisture for our vegetation down in downhill areas. We also have less snow most years than we typically do. This year we were at about 78% of our typical snowpack. And we've got a slide here later that talks about snow water equivalency. So we just have less water available for that vegetation throughout the summer dry months. So it dries out a lot more. And then how does wildfire start? Well, number one cause is escape debris piles. And over 70% of wildfires in Washington are caused by humans. And so if you see all the orange where we live, it's pretty much all humans, right? And then out there in the wilds, North Cascades Park and stuff, we get some lightning emissions. But wherever humans are, we have human-caused emissions. So if we have those decades and decades of built-up fuel, and now we add more ignition sources in those areas, the likelihood of fire increases. And because we have all that built-up fuel, and we built our houses closer together in these movie areas, the threat to us personally increases. Not gonna leave from the spot. All right. So this is just a chart that shows the wildfire trends over the last 24 years. The purple is British Columbia, the red is California, the orange is Oregon, and the yellow is Washington. You can see we burn less acreage typically than these other areas, but the overall trend is rising. The reason I show this slide is, you know, young kids in college, they send them out to the forest to look for burn scars, and they establish the perimeter of historic and ancient burns. And then now when we have a fire, we have satellites that can watch it, tell us how big it is and where it got. Of all that science that we've done, marking the perimeter of fires, the 10 largest wildfires that we know of in human history have occurred over the last 30 years. So of course, there's going to be a pre-civilization time when we had extremely large fires that we're just now finding the perimeters to. But of all the boots on the ground and all the satellites in the sky, the 10 largest fires that we know of all occurred in the last 30 years. So is this the new normal, that we're just going to have mega fires instead of the smaller fires? We're hoping not, but that seems to be what we're trending towards. Last year, we just missed the top 10, right? About 10,000 acres. So what is the biggest threat from these wildfires? Is it this huge threatening wall of flame that Hollywood tells us about? Well, actually, no. It's the small embers that all work together as a gang. You fall from the sky on something on or near your home that catches on fire, that then catches the house on fire. Over 80% of homes that ignite during a wildfire are ignited from an ember, not from the tree next to the house that was on fire. The house caught on fire from the trees. As a matter of fact, when I talk to wildland firefighters, when they will talk about a scene, they'll say it was a chimneys and trees neighborhood. Meaning the only thing left in the neighborhood were the chimneys and the trees, which tells us two things. Number one, we should build our houses out of chimney material. Right? Stone doesn't burn. Number two, the trees are usually only burned on the side that was facing the house. What does that tell us? The house caught on fire and burned those trees. So we don't have to be afraid of our trees. Be afraid of the bark mulch next to our senior side. If you have a shingle shake roof, I'm not gonna hold any punches. Your house is very much in danger. Not just from wildfire, but from bottle rockets, from your neighbor's barbecue. Cedar shake shingle roofs are a stupid thing in the Pacific Northwest. If you have one, replace it now. And you see why embers are dangerous. They're factory, North Carolina. It's the greatest job in the world. They build houses and burn them down on purpose to see how and why. My application is ready for the next one. This is about a 2-minute video. We'd like to click the audio. Let me know in the back if we need to go up or down. But they got one house that is built kind of traditional contemporary Northwest materials and landscaping, and then one side that has fire resistant materials and landscaping. They have a big ember generator where they put in materials. That's the same stuff that embers are made out of in nature. And then they throw it at the house with some fans and watch what happens.
And two sides to it. The good side, which uses wildfire resistant construction, and what we're considering a typical building that you would see in a wildfire prone area. Bolts on the ground there, caught fire from the embers. The fire from the bolts burned up under into the deck, and this whole deck was on fire. And so this fire on this deck caused flames right against the home. And then if we look there at the base of the door, there's actually the flames from this deck that burned through the bottom of the door inside of the house and started to see smoke and flames. And so because this deck was combustible material, the actual building, when the embers led to the ignition of this deck, we got flames inside the building. Here we are on the wildfire resistant side of the house where we had 9 combustible siding and 5'9" combustible zone and 6-inch gas. We had a metal gutter and multi-pane windows. And we see in comparison to the non-wildfire resistant side, this side had the same ember exposure. As you look here in the mulch, you can actually see some of the embers that had accumulated, but because they had no section fuel to ignite, they just landed there and fizzled out. And here we have ornamental vegetation. That again is susceptible to the embers, but because it's more than 5 feet away from the home, it didn't have enough energy to ignite, and it never led to a flame impact on the building.
So quite a dramatic difference between just what we use on that immediate zone in our home.
So from start to finish,
All right. So from that video, we can take away a best practice of improving the defensible space via home improvements in the home ignition zone. And home ignition zone is broken down into 3 zones. The immediate zone, the first 0 to 5 feet. And that includes your home itself and the materials on the home. Then 5 to 30 feet, where we talk about landscaping, we talk about choices and placement. And then out to 100 feet, where we really start talking about those ladder fuels and the connection between flammable materials, or the fuse that I call it. And we realize that here in Semi-Auto, when you go out to 100 feet, you're probably on your neighbor's property. And that's why we invoke programs like Firewise, so that we can work together as a community to address those common threats. I like to use the line that wildfire mitigation goes to the fence. We extend a friendly hand and hope it doesn't get bit. So let's look at some of the things that we can do in that immediate zone. Again, this is the most important part. I'm going to talk about return on investment, time, money, doing it in the first 5 feet of the house and materials when the house is most important. So first, let's improve those materials. Those cedar shingle sidings, aged, weathered, not sealed, taken care of, not a great thing. I don't ask that you replace all your siding, but maybe the bottom 3 feet. An architectural accent with some like stonework or metal siding or fiber cement siding to get some separation between any ground fuels and the bottom of the house. Fires like to burn from the bottom up. Your homes burn just like campfires. You can't take a cigarette lighter and put it to a log and expect to get warm. You have to put tinder and kindling around that log to get lit up. So your home is the log and all the stuff around it is potential tinder and kindling. So we remove the tinder and the kindling from the house and hopefully the log never starts on fire. So those materials, wood chips and mulch, combustible materials right up against the house, embers, land, and that stuff can exist for months. The Altadena fire last year was out for 3 days. And then all of a sudden the wind changed and started up again. We all know what happened after that. Vents in your home are very, very important, especially the roof vents, dormer vents, the vents that you have your bird blocking, if you have open soffits. Roof systems are designed to draft air, to ventilate and prevent rot and mold in the roofing system. So imagine you have embers flying by in the wind and you have this little hole in your house that's literally sucking stuff in. Those embers get pulled into the attic space and start the house on fire. And Chief Vanderveen or any other firefighter will tell you once the roof is involved, the structure is pretty much a loss. So 8-inch screen vents, they've shown in that same factory, they prevent embers of the right size, block out enough of them to prevent ignition inside of the attic space. A lot of houses built before 1997 have 1/4-inch mesh on their venting system. So that's an easy fix. It's an inexpensive fix, but a very vital part of the home. Clean your gutters and your roofs. Have them cleaned. Bring the grandkids out, whatever. Get that stuff cleaned out. The textbook for wildfire says do it once a year, but they didn't live here. So do it at least twice a year, right? What I recommend is we do it right now, May, June, get rid of all that stuff that's building up for fire season. Then do it again in September, October before it starts raining so that your downspouts are functioning properly. The asphalt composition roofing that you see there actually has a 2-hour burn rating. As wildfire is concerned, it's better than metal roofing. Metal roofing only has a 1-hour burn rating, which might be counterintuitive to some people, but it's the truth. But even though we have a 2-hour burn rate on this, right underneath this area here is that plywood that your roof is sheeted with for shear and strength. So if the needles in your gutter catch on fire, they're not going to burn up over the top, they're going to burn underneath that. Most houses are flashed, but after years of wind, weather, and stuff like that, sometimes that flashing is no longer properly in place. So being able to inspect that and make sure it's in place is important. So we're going to look at some conditions that exist around some houses that are not very good. So I think I say it wrong. Other people say it arbor vitae, arbor vitae, arbor. It's this crap right here. Even cypress, spruce, cedar, any of those trees that look like that, and we trim them and keep them as view or sound barriers between us and our neighbors. Wildland firefighters call them Roman candles. They shoot flames 60 feet up in the sky. They burn very, very quick. And no matter how green they are on the outside, you look on the inside, it's dead and dry and brown. Very, very dangerous things. So we want to get rid of those. Then, we have a rhododendron here where the leaves are kind of getting old and brown.
So you're saying 5 feet away from the house is okay?
Nope. Maybe the textbook does, but Rob Walter says get rid of all the arborvitae on your property. The arborvitae should be at least 30 feet away from your house, which is going to put within 30 feet of somebody else's house here. It's just it's a horrible plant for wildfire anywhere on the property because it burns so hot, it is flame contact and radiant contact heat. It spreads to other things on the property. I often tell people when I go on my inspections that the Lorax is my favorite Dr. Seuss character, and I hardly ever recommend the removal of a tree because we can mitigate around that tree, remove branches, remove understory stuff. When it comes to that stuff, there's just no getting around it. It has to be worked out. Then this one on the right, we've just got some dead stuff that's growing up. It's starting to touch the eaves and the rafters up there. So in the Pacific Northwest, we're not to remove every plant within the first 5 feet. We just have to be selective about what plants we have there and how we treat them. So my mantra is if you want to retain it, you have to maintain it. So let's get some clipping going on there and remove some of that stuff. And then the middle picture, we've got ferns that I have a love-hate relationship with. When I'm out hunting, I can look on the ground and see a bunch of ferns. No, I don't want to walk there. It's really super wet. But I also know that if I'm in dire need and need to start a fire, I can reach underneath the wettest of ferns, grab stuff dry enough to start a fire. They don't die once a year. They are constantly dying and regenerating. And again, just like the arborvitae, you look inside and underneath, there's brown dead material, that material that's highly valuable. And unfortunately, it readily grows where we're at. It has a time and a place. It's in the gullies, in the wilds. It's not up against our house, it's against our cedar siding. So we just want to change those conditions. We don't have to completely revamp it. We just want to change those conditions. So when it comes to our trees, we want all the branches pruned up to 10 feet off the ground. And that's not where the branch starts. That's where the bough dips to. Get those up, get the separation between that and the ground fuels. Employ hardscaping or stone or something that doesn't burn in that first 5 feet of your house. And if you have us come out and do the risk assessment on your home, again, the textbook says 5 feet. We can feather that in, depending on where we're at, what materials you're using, or what's surrounding, right? One of those questions I like to answer with, how long is a piece of string? Depends on the piece of string. So individual residence is going to be a little bit different. And then, you can still landscape in that area. You just got to space things out, and you've got to choose plants that are fire resistant. We just happen to have on our website a whole list of plants that are native and fire resistant due to their structure and components of the plants themselves. So your home doesn't have to look like moonscape. We don't have to go Arizona volcanic rock on everything. We still have some of our very beautiful green plants that are native to the Pacific Northwest and have a fire-wise home and neighborhood. So again, the focus is that first 5 feet, the materials on your home, the things around it. Think about your decks, your deck furniture, the cushions on your deck furniture, the welcome mat made out of core material on your back door, the hanging baskets with that same core material that we put right underneath our wooden eaves. Those are receptive buckets for embers to land in. So I'm not saying don't have those things at your house, just have a plan for them, right? If we have a red flag warning day that fire conditions are ripe in our area, there's already a fire in the region that you know of or in the area, or you're going to be away from the home for a couple of weeks on vacation, we'll be home to take these actions. Get those flammable cushions and stuff inside the garage. Get them somewhere inside, whereas if they catch on fire inside, something bad is already going on, right? Worst case scenario, you take these items and you throw them out in your lawn. Because in your lawn, there are black spot on the grass if they catch on fire. On your deck, underneath your eave, they could be the thing that catches your house on fire. Now going out to that next zone, we start talking about vegetation choices and how we place them. So we want a well-kept lawn. We have grass, we want it mowed, green. There's going to come that time in August, September where it turns a little bit brown. We don't have a watering system going. Just make sure it's mowed nice and low. And then think about if a fire started there and started traveling this way, does it have a path to reach my home? And we can stop that path by installing rock borders. No trees or large vegetation within 10 feet of the house. Unless it's arborvitae, just get rid of it. And this space between the trees. We don't want that hedgerow. We don't want that close orchard, right? We want things spread out so that if one tree catches on fire, it's not spreading to the canopy to the other trees and casting embers back towards the house. And then consider non-combustible landscaping, hardscaping, rockeries. In my world, that's a fire break. Fire is going to get to that and stop and extinguish itself. And now we're going out into our neighbor's property, right? Or we're going into the community lands that SRA and different HOAs have been working on. Eliminate the ladder fuels, get rid of that connection, remove the vertical fuse between the ground and lower branches. Be aware of those embers becoming crown fires. What happens in those areas that become crown fire? What can we do to minimize that? Removing the dead trees in between the live trees. If you have sickly trees that are the connection in the canopy, by removing those, you're removing canopy connection. You're also going to help the health of the trees around them because they're no longer competing for resources. A sick tree will receive more resources than a healthy tree. Can we nerd out for 1 second here, Julia? Underneath all of our ground is a mycorrhizal network with all these fungi talking to each other, and they send electrical signals from trees. And if there's trees in an area in a grove and one of the trees is sick, the other trees will forego the uptake of nutrients to help that tree. But they're not real smart, so they'll actually do it to their own detriment. So by removing sick trees out of an area, we're actually helping them. And again, this may include your neighbor's property. So by working together,
we can create an ignition-resistant community, which is the goal of Firewise USA. And if you didn't know, you now have 5 Firewise USA communities inside of Seminole. And what are the reasons for being Firewise USA? It's a voluntary recognition program. Not required to do anything. It's a framework for working together as a community to reduce your wildfire risk. It's been around since 2002 with the National Fire Protection Agency, the Forest Service, state forest organizations. Our DNR supports very hard. That's why they give away lots of money every year for people who are Firewise communities and addressing these vulnerabilities and risks they have. And it addresses risk on private property. So it's not, Forest Service recognizes it and encourages it, but they don't use it on their own property, so they have their own management goals and plans for it there. You might recognize some of the folks in these pictures. Firewise USA is an established framework to help residents get organized, find direction, and take action to increase ignition resistance of their homes and their community. And these fancy little Firewise signs, what I tell people is when you see those in a neighborhood, it doesn't mean that we've done it. We've become Firewise and we're ready. More of we recognize we have a problem and we're working towards a solution. It's an easy process. Probably easier to me than it was for you going through it the first couple of times with all the different organizations. Neil has been really helpful in helping all the related HOAs kind of do the whole thing too. But it's a 4-step thing. You get organized, you form a board. It can be 2-3 people in your HOA or community that are very concerned. You obtain a wildfire risk assessment, which means you call me and I come around and drive around the neighborhood and take some notes and write up a report that's 5-6 pages long. And then out of that risk assessment, we're going to develop a 3 to 5 year action plan for different things that your community are going to do each year to reduce your vulnerability and risk to wildfire. You do the work. You hire to work out, you do the work, you go out and you document it. Lots of good before and after pictures like everybody's been doing here. And then you go on an online portal and you tell them about it. It's 9 pages that you click through. It's basically how much did you do, how much money did you spend, how many hours were involved. And what it asks, let's say you have 75 houses in an HOA that want to be Firewise. It asks 1 hour from each household, no matter how many people live in it. Or the in-kind contribution of funds, which is $34.72 an hour or something like that. So you can either do it with a checkbook or do it with your elbow, right? And what you'll always find is that you are doing more than the 1 hour per household. Way more than the 1 hour per household. So keeping track of it and recording it isn't that hard. As a matter of fact, as I was saying, we've got the overarching resort association, Boundary Ridge, Lindenville Villas 1 and 2, Crestwood Village, St. Andrews Green 1 and 2. How many people here live in these neighborhoods? All right. So, those who didn't raise your hand, take my car outside, let's talk. Oh, Glen Eagle.
1, 2.
Yeah, they're related to their party.
Okay. I haven't gotten that update. We'll have to talk about that. So what are the primary benefits of being a Firewise community? It's community. You're working together to address your common threats. And I'm not going to hide behind it. And one of the major benefits, money. Preferential access to that grant funding that Delia was talking about. They're competitive grants. You are a Firewise USA community, pretty much automatically get moved into funding. As long as you have that action plan and you're following through with it. So every time I do one of these presentations, I'm always asked, what does this year look like for wildfire? So this time I put together a few slides to go over that. First of all, what do we look at when we're trying to forecast a wildfire season? There's the preseason stuff. How much snows on the mountain? A little bit of low correlation with that. Long-term droughts. The month of June right now is very, very important on telling us when fire season is going to begin. It can also tell us a lot about how intense fire season possibly can be. Sometimes we're still a little cool and showery, like what, 3 days ago? Other times we get really dry and it warms up real quick. That rain isn't always a good thing for fire because what does rain do? Makes things grow. We get real tall and bushy. Then in August, September, when we have that 40 days of nights of no rain, it's real dry, volatile, cool. But what's most important for a fire season is what happens during the fire season, July to September. The fuel conditions, the ERC, or what we call the energy release component, that's like a measure of how much potential energy is in that fuel load on the forest floor or in the burns around your house, or the arborvitae, you and your neighbors. As temperatures go up, relative humidity drops, that energy release component rises. We keep apprised of long-range climate outlooks from the Climate Prediction Center, looking at those droughts, the possible rainfall, atmospheric rivers in August like last year. Really bad for my fishing, but good for wildfire. So those are the things we look at. And just as it has, this is adopted in June. We are very likely to develop a drought this year. If you hadn't heard, the state of Washington's already declared the whole state in a drought condition for the 5th year straight for Washington County. This is that snow water equivalency, basically how much water is contained in the snow that we have in our snowpack. In our area, we were about 55% of what we call our normal snow water equivalency. So just a little bit over half what we're typically used to and counting on to keep our vegetation healthy. And then we've got weather patterns.
Yo soy el niño, for those of you who don't habla español, el niño is Spanish for the niño.
Anytime I can get enough people to laugh, I'm gonna take it. So, there we go. So this year, as you probably heard, we are forecast for a very strong El Nino. Exactly what that means for us up here is still waiting to see. Sometimes warming temperatures over the ocean can actually lead to more rain for us. But it's looking like that's gonna stay a little bit south of us, and we're gonna get caught kind of in a shadow belt where we're gonna experience lots of dry, warm temperatures going through late September. Here from the National Weather Service and NOAA is the seasonal outlook. This is May, June, July. We're above our normal temperatures. We're below our normal precipitation. Going into July through September, we're slightly above our normal temperatures. And in our little corner, we might get some of that seasonal precipitation they're talking about from the warm ocean water dumping on us. So fingers crossed. But as you can see, other parts of Washington, and the map doesn't go up into Canada, but our friends up north are going to experience that heat bubble from that with lower precipitation. So significant wildfire potential outlook from the same people. We're okay now. We're probably okay for the rest of this month. July, August, and the September outlook was just released a couple days ago. We're in for potential high intensity wildfires through all of Washington from July through September. DC, it's the same thing. So looking at combining all those things in the outlook, we had all that heavy rain in December, but the winter snowfall is well below normal, so that snow water equivalency is gone. We've got things growing right now and they're going to dry out. We have a forecast that tells us we're going to be moderately higher in temperatures than we have been the last couple of years. That below normal snowpack combined with gradual shift to warm and dry conditions says that we could have an early and very active fire season. There's already been a couple big fires on the east side of the state, and that same weather pattern is starting to repeat over here. So the weather conditions and cadence, the speed at which those weather systems move through are the most telling factor during wildfire season, how intense, how frequent we could have wildfires on the landscape. And probably the most concern to us this year, in my opinion, and if there's any lawyers in the room, please tell me if this is not the most lawyerly sentence you've ever heard in your life. Wildfire smoke and its transport will be dependent on where fires occur and the weather pattern at the time. So if there's a fire and the wind's blowing your way, you're probably gonna get some smoke. You know, so I don't know. But looking at the forecast, look at the fuel load at our neighbors to the north in DC, and generations of understaffed and probably poor force management decisions up there, I believe are going to lead to a very heavy smoke year for us. That El Nino pattern, supporting us of the wind moving is going to affect us pretty badly. So bottom line, long range climate predictions are good at telling us season totals and averages and trends. But it's those short term weather systems that happen during the fire season. The red flag warning days with increased temperature, lower relative humidity, and then putting a bunch of us out on the landscape with our swinging tire chains or our escape button piles. When we do react to fires. And so there's been a lot of stuff coming out of my mouth that I talk about every day. And sometimes it's hard to digest. So we've got there's any Buffy the Vampire Slayer fans in here. We've got some very smart wisdom from Buffy. That's next one. Mine wasn't great. Basically, she starts off by saying, fire bad, tree pretty. And then he goes off using a bunch of 7-syllable words. And she looks at him and he says, I'm sorry, she's fire bad, tree pretty. So a lot of technical information in there, but basically fire's bad, trees are pretty. We don't have to get rid of one to save our houses. And I like to post all my presentations with technical difficulties. Or not. Oh, well. Here's a picture that shows that I really enjoy my job.
Yeah. One of the benefits, in addition to securing your homes, is actually, I'll talk about what we're doing in Glen Eagles, for example. For the program, we've brought the community together. We're using it as a team building exercise. We're going around the neighborhood, picking up branch and picking up starter fluid, and that's getting people out. That's one thing. The other thing that it's done, for those on the golf car side, you can now see the golf course. Because although the canopy over time has come down, and so by lifting the canopy, not only are you improving the protection against fires, you're actually seeing the golf course. And one of the things that's happened around the homes and in the back area, that when you start cutting, you say, ooh, it just feels kind of naked. But actually, the effect that has is actually allows the flowers, the rhodos, and other of the vegetation that have started to die come back. And so not only is this about improving fire resistance and whatnot, it actually helps the community in other ways that you wouldn't have necessarily noticed the first year. We've seen a big difference in Samiamu this year just by lifting the canopy of the trees. All of a sudden, the vegetation is coming back, and the right place is not within 5 feet.
Yeah.
So I found a big enough hammer and I hit my computer. So that's my contact information. Again, we have some other pamphlets and stuff outside and a sign-up sheet if you like one of those individual risk assessments. And again, just pictures that illustrate that I really do enjoy my job. I like what I do. It's a lot of fun. That's from a prescribed biochar burn that we did up on Diopsy Creek, up north near East Skagit last fall. And they had a fire hose on site and I had fun. If there's any questions, I take them now or.
Could you go ahead and end your screen share?
I did.
You did. Okay.
So I got to the next slide.
Okay. Awesome.
Zoom was lost the chat.
Yeah, for us to modify our landscaping, we have to work through the SRA. Is that correct? And how expedited is that program? Because my experience in the past is it's not a very good program.
So let me give my disclaimer statement. Anytime you work with trees, vegetation on property, you are initially bound to jurisdictions like your HOA, watershed considerations. I don't think you have any of that here down in Birch Bay and Sun Valley. They do for Lake Whatcom. But yes, there are overarching management principles in there. That said, the SRA has worked over the last few years to make that easier. I'll let
Right.
you do that.
The SRA has worked very hard with Robert, with the fire chief to be educated, okay, about fire-wise practices. Beth Crafton who is our landscape coordinator for the ASC, has really embraced fire-wise concept. So if you need to change your landscaping, she calls it refreshing your landscaping. Contact her. She'll come out, she'll give you tips. She'll show you, she's got a whole book of Firewise friendly plants provided by Whatcom Conservation District, and she'll help you with that project. I think you'll see it's changing.
Refreshing to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Anybody else? Did I talk too fast? I'm good.
So as you can tell, the theme is about the safety, okay? Well, fire safety, but also about personal medical safety, okay? And so now we're going to switch back to Chief Vanderbeek to talk with us about what is the current status of Fire District 21? That's our fire district. What are the challenges? And if the levy does pass, what would it fund? And so he's getting hooked up here. We do have, we're switching to his computer or to his presentation. Okay, good. We do have, after Chief's presentation, we do have a couple of sample videos that were made by residents here in Semiano that we'll close up his presentation with. And I think you'll even recognize the people in the video.
Great, thank you very much.
Hold on one moment. Chelsea, can you enter the share screen on Zoom, please?
Jason Vanderbeek, I'm the fire chief for the Washington Fire District 21. A couple of things to just start off with. First off, Fire District 21 is an independent taxing authority, it's a junior taxing authority in the state of Washington. Meaning that our tax revenue, which is not a word I like to use, but it's the word we use in government, your tax money comes directly to the fire district. There's no, it doesn't go to the county and then we fight the county for a portion of it. We are a direct taxing authority. The issue we're talking about today directly affects the fire district. We don't have to fight for our piece of pie through the county. The second off is that, again, Jason Vanderbeek, my fire chief. I've been with North Whatcom. I've been in the fire service since 1995. Started with North Whatcom in 2007, became the chief in 2019. And this has been a project that I've been working on since I became the chief. We ran 2 levies in 2021, another levy in 2024, all 3 of which were not approved by the voters. So I'm hopeful that voters will take a look at this and thoughtfully consider what we're asking them. One thing I do want to preface my talk about, or one thing I do want to preface before I talk is that legally, I am a representative of the government. I am able to educate, but I cannot advocate. That's what Mr. Scott Farrell was here for. They can say many different things than I can say. I should lead you to water. That's the limit of what I can do. Also, so you know, there are 2 of our fire commissioners. They are elected officials. They have overall fiduciary responsibility for the fire district. They're here today. Craig Anthony and Matt Rigberg are in attendance. They're semi-annual residents, so they're attending as residents, not as fire. Okay, next slide. So just a little bit about who we are. So Whatcom County Fire District covers 153 square miles. In those 153 square miles, we've got 3 stations. We've got 1 in Blaine, 1 in Birch Bay, and 1 in Laurel, which is just north of Belmont. We protect just about 34,000 residents in that 153 square miles. And there's 72 people that make up North Whatcom. 49 of them are uniformed firefighters.
There's myself and a deputy chief. We've got 3 non-uniformed administrative staff and a mechanic. And the rest are, kind of a tender group. They're volunteers. They're not combat firefighters, but they go in city fires. They bring water to the fire in the rural areas. Most of them are retired volunteers, and they just like the lights and trucks. Next slide. Just to give you an idea of how big Fire District 21 is, we are the green area up here. And the donut there is the city of Linden. They've got their own fire. And then our next most kind of general comparable is Fire District 7, which is in the Ferndale area to the south of us. So we cover quite a bit of miles, and when you realize that's done with staff stations, it's pretty incredible what our crews do on a daily basis. I will bring up some recent incidences of what we call station failure, which is where everybody's out, and a little bit later in my slideshow here, but yeah, I just wanted to give you an idea of what the fire district looks like on a map. Next slide, please. So these are some of the challenges that we've been facing over the years. On the right here is kind of a chart of calls, incidents that we've had over the years. In 2014, we ran just about 3,300 calls. This last year, 2025, we ran just around 6,000 calls for service. 71% of those are medical in nature, so EMS. So it's whether it's a traumatic injury or chest pain, difficulty breathing, stroke, something like that. Most of what we do nowadays is medical in nature. The firefighters are cross-trained as EMTs and firefighters. We serve at the BLS level, so basic life support. You pay if you look at your tax statement, you pay to the Whatcom County EMS levy. That is for advanced life support services. Those are the paramedics. Those are the people that can start a line, put a breathing tube in, talk to the docs in the ER, administer more medicine. We stabilize. So what our crews do is they arrive, they stabilize, they kind of triage you, and they get you moving towards a higher level of care depending on what you need at that time. About a third of our calls overlap, meaning we have stations out at multiple times. And like I said, I'll talk a little bit later in the presentation about where we hit station failure, which is where that's our term for all of our stations are out, and we're drawing from other districts to cover our costs. That is happening more frequently, and that is one of the reasons that this levy addresses adding the station at Semiahmoo, staffing the station at Semiahmoo, is that no additional capacity has been added to the fire district since before 2006. So we are dealing with the same station, same staffing since 20 years ago. And if you've lived here for any amount of time, you've seen the area grow. So next slide, please. Some additional challenges we have is that our fleet of apparatus is aging and our facilities are aging. We have 7 stations in the Fire District 21. The best way I can say is it's like owning 7 houses. So you've got 7 HVAC systems, 7 water heaters, 7 electrical boxes, 7 of everything. And over time, those things wear out, just like they do in your home. Roofs, all the things. We have, due to kind of a lack of funding, due to a lack of funding over the years, we have deferred maintenance on a lot of these things. And unfortunately, the bill is coming due. Our most recent station was built in 2020, so it's 26 years old. So as a homeowner, I'm starting to think about all the things, right? Water heaters, HVAC, all those things. It is our only station that was purpose built to house mixed gender crews. I heard Delia talk earlier about an open house we're having at Station 63. Station 63 was completed in 1980, built for a volunteer system. We've been operating out of it on a 24-hour basis. but it has one room for showers. The crews live in a bunkhouse, so they live living style. And they've done amazing workarounds. If basically the rule is if you're in 63 and the door's closed, you haven't seen your crewmate, you better knock before you open it. Thankfully, the crews are fantastic. We haven't had any problems, but it's all, we're one group to live, right? It's not, firefighters spend a third of their lives living in the station. As call volume increases, as complexity of calls increases, mental health has become more of a thing. I will admit that I'm from the generation now, I'm considered a dinosaur by my younger subordinates. But we were really good at stuffing it and we didn't talk about it. And we didn't talk about the icky stuff. Turns out that's not the best way to deal with things. And so the new generation of firefighters is more interested in coming out of this job, they want to build resilience, not bad habits. And one of those things that does that is where they rest between calls. And where they're home, they're restful. And so Station 63 is a big problem for that. In addition to a flat roof from the northwest, which you can only imagine after 40, 50 years what that does. We have it rains hard enough, you've got a nice indoor water feature in the apparatus bay where the rain pours through the ceiling. Can't be fixed because the station is not seismically built correctly. It was built in that era when you just put single layer brick. So it would be extremely difficult to tear the roof off and put a new roof on. It requires a lot of engineering and building up of the walls, which we're just at that point where it's too expensive to fix. Our apparatus are old. They're safe. Our mechanic does a fantastic job. They're old and they're safe, but old stuff breaks down. Fire trucks, this may cause a nervous laugh, but they get driven like rental cars. They sit in the apparatus bay, and then when the phones go off, they drive them hard, and they need to work. They need to work all the time, every time, immediately. And that puts wear and tear on an engine. The national standard for keeping a fire engine or a water tender in service is 10 years in frontline service, 10 years in reserve, and then you get rid of it. We are just submitting a grant. We've not been able to put funds together to replace a water tender that's in service at the station that I work at that went on a fire yesterday that was built in 1998. So, excuse me, 1989. 1989. We're asking the feds to help us, asking FEMA to help us fund the replacement of that apparatus. All of our brush trucks, we were just talking about wildfires, all of our brush trucks are out of compliance. They work, they're maintenance intensive, and there's some tricks to running them, but they're all out of that national standard compliance. One of the other things that happens when Delia did a video recently where she talked about insurance and how stations and things affect insurance. The apparatus over the age of 20 years gets us no points towards reducing that fire rating, which can affect your insurance. So all these things, all these little things kind of affect what you pay for insurance. In addition to that, we have one ladder truck in the district that recently suffered a catastrophic mechanical failure. It's 19 years old. It doesn't make sense to pay to replace it. So it's in surplus. We're gonna sell it. But we're currently relying on Ferndale for ladder truck coverage in the district because we can't afford to replace it. I will talk about the replacement of apparatus again in a few minutes. Slide. So the levy was last approved by voters in 2006. They approved $1.37. Since then, due to something called levy compression, which I'm not going to try to explain, you know how to use Google, asked Google to explain it. And I've learned a trick. If Google explains it too complicated, ask them to explain it to a fifth grader and it works for me. But levy compression has caused our levy to drop 77 cents per thousand. In the state of Washington, taxing districts, like fire districts, are limited to 1%, a 1% increase of their previous year's budget every year unless the voters approve. And that's what we're asking voters to consider in this levy renewal. But we're limited to 1%. The levy rate will drop, but the number has to drop because they can't, otherwise the county treasurer's office can't do the calculation to tell you what your tax will be. So the levy rate drops. So we are down to 77 cents per thousand. In the state of Washington, fire districts are allowed to ask up to $1.50. We're not asking for $1.50. But since the last time the levy was approved in 2006, I wanted to do a comparison as to what things cost then versus now. So an engine in 2006 cost about $380,000. Fire District 4, which is a neighboring district to us, just ordered a new engine for $1.15 million. That is not a parade rig. That is a toolbox on wheels. It's what fire apparatus costs these days. Ladder truck cost in 2006 for about $700,000 to replace. The ladder truck that we have that just failed is $2 million. In the past, the fire district has been able to fund apparatus replacements on a cash basis. I do not, with the price of apparatus, we can't do that anymore. We're going to have to figure out a way to finance these things. They've gotten too expensive. One reason for the cost of fire apparatus going up is that there used to be about 20 plus manufacturers of fire apparatus in the United States. They've all been bought up by equity firms. There's 3 firms that own basically all the rights to building all fire apparatus in the US. That's going through Congress. There's been some hearings on it. We're hopeful for some relief, but we've just seen this dramatic rise in the cost of apparatus. EMS supplies are 60 to 70% higher today than they were in 2006. There was a lot more distributors before COVID. Since COVID, I think there's a lot fewer. I'm interested to see that. I don't know if you follow the news or not, but Medline, which is a big, they distribute a lot of medical supplies. Their warehouse just burned yesterday in Tracy, California. The million square foot warehouse. It's interesting to see what happens with medical supplies. Fuel, I don't even know if I need to address it. Well, what we do is the way I was taught to budget fuel was you take the highest price it's ever been. You never budget below that. But I didn't see this coming, so it's going to be very interesting at the end of the year when we see what our fuel costs are like. Next slide, please. So what we're talking about here is that there's a funding gap. And this bottom line here, this $1.37 levy rate, the budget of a 1% annual increase, it's gotten us up here. Unfortunately, our needs are at the top of the arrow. And that's what this levy addresses. This levy addresses the staffing of an additional station, which is the Semiahmoo station. It is logically in the path of growth. This is not the district is not pandering to a group of people. It is a purpose-built station that we have. Call volume is highest in the west, in the main Birch Bay, Semiahmoo area. But we need to staff an additional station for just the capacity of what they're doing on a daily basis, not even surge capacity. It addresses the upkeep of our stations and a major remodel or up to including a replacement of the Birch Bay station. And it covers the replacement of both fire and ambulance. Keep our fleet young, keep us in line with those national standards and which basically insurance requirements. As well as, it addresses, just our constant ongoing needs. Next slide, please. So in 2006, it was approved $1.37 levy. Our current levy rate is 77 cents. And what we're asking the voters to consider is renewing the levy at $1.20 per thousand. And with the renewal of the levy, it would give the commissioners the ability to, instead of being limited to the 1%, to have a 3% limit factor. So the district could try to keep up with inflation. Now, that decision is made by me, the fire chief. That decision is made by the fire commissioners only after public hearings or hearings at public meetings, so that they have to defend their choice and the public has a chance to voice their support or opposition. So it is not an automatic 3% every year. It's something the board, your elected officials have to opt into and do transparently in the open. Next slide, please. Actually, can you go back one? Sorry. One more board right there. So what will this cost me? I can't, sorry, it's been a morning and I can't remember if the slide after the next one addresses what it will cost me, but I want to go ahead and address that now. So for a home valued at $500,000, it will cost a homeowner, currently it's at 77 cents, you pay $385 a year to the fire district. It would raise it to $600, which when you look at the two numbers side by side, it's a big jump. If you were to look at the cost monthly, it's less than $20 a month. It's right like 1802 or something like that. So it is a considerable ask, but we're in a dire position. And we'll get to that in a minute. Go ahead. So as I said before, we levy with staff station 62. So we'd hire an additional 12 firefighters to staff that station. There was a question earlier about when. That's a great question. And I'm glad it got asked because it will not happen on January 1st of 2027. If the levy is approved, we will go through the hiring process and we will get people in an academy in January. They would start the academy in late January. They'd be on the floor by about April or May. We would work to staff an aid car up there using overtime or creative scheduling as soon as possible, but I can't promise. The promise is that it would be about 12 months before I know that we would have staffing every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It takes time to train firefighters. It takes time to get them on the street and confident in their skills. So we would, obviously, we're not going to put all the new firefighters in the semi-army. We mix things up. Trust me, there's people already lining up to bid to work at semi-army. But it does take time to go through the hiring process, the training process, and licensing and getting all the things in place. So
what that means though is had the levy passed in 2024, our fire station would have been fully up and running over the last year. So that's why it's important that everybody knows that that's what's on the ballot.
Just a question on the building itself. I saw a bunch of repairs being done for the pier stock,
yes.
and then it's been condemned. I'm wondering if that will be, and again, I'm not deep on property stuff around the kind of stuff, but it seems to me that if this was more centrally located, like on Lincoln Road, in between Birch Space and Emily, it seems like it'd be a bigger station and the other things. I'm happy to pay it. I've always voted yes for that. This one seems like an odd pace with that building.
It's not ideal, but it's a building we have. And yes, the reason it's condemned, it's not actually condemned. When we were doing some repairs to it and doing some upgrades, and one of the things, there's some stairs off the back in the second floor. And once we remove those stairs, you can't have it as a public building, it cannot be occupied because it's not ADA compliant, there's not a second way of egress. So we condemn the building so that any contractor going there to do maintenance knows that there's not a second, egress. It does need some repairs. Those are actually, we've got them all lined up. We've got permit from the city of Wayne. We're working, this month, the punch list will be put together so that in August, if the levy passes, we can start those projects and have it ready for staff in June. So to speak to the station location, that the location was picked wrong before I came around. Actually, the Birch Bay station is in the perfect spot. We could not decommission that station and move it to Lincoln Road. It would affect response times for so many calls that it truly needs. And if the building out of the semi-ombud spit, which I know is contentious, but if it were to happen the way that they're saying it might happen or could happen, that's the semi-ombud station will be critical to that area. It truly does. It does fit into the plan. In subsequent levies, so levy period is 6 years. In subsequent levies, you're going to see the fire district talking about staffing other stations further to the east. This is just step one. This is the most critical need right now. In subsequent levies, like I said, you're going to see Birch Bay, Linden Road, and Enterprise is probably a spot we need to build a staff station. Further, and then again, further east up in the Northwood area. So it's slow progress. And yeah, I agree. There's some wonky stuff, but when you look at if you look at where incidents are actually happening, we actually need both those stations. So just so you know, the trigger point for insurance is if it's 5 road miles from a station, it needs to be covered by a different station. So the best example I have is the Semiahmoo community is served by the Birch Bay station. At Semiahmoo Drive, so Semiahmoo Parkway and Semiahmoo Drive, that's 5 miles. So anybody beyond that 4-way stop saw their insurance go up. And I've seen a few even though it's not. Yes. And it can literally be the difference between the yellow line and the road. They don't, insurance gives no, that's just how they do their calculation. Back to this real quick. So the staffing of Station 62, the hiring of additional firefighters, the replacement of apparatus. I put forward a 20-year plan for apparatus for the replacement and cycling of apparatus so that we are able to spend our money wisely as well as capture the most insurance points for our customers. And then the other thing it would do is it would preserve the current service. Now, that's kind of a weird way of saying it, but where we're at as a fire district is if this levy, if it doesn't pass, we are at a point where we're going to have to make decisions based on can we maintain buildings and vehicles, and what can we afford to pay for people, and what can we afford to pay for staff. And that is, unfortunately, with the help of some very smart people, I've been able to realize and now articulate that we are going to have times when stations are closed due to lack of staff. We simply cannot afford to staff firefighters in stations. I can't tell you what station right here. I can't tell you when it's going to happen. We're going to use data to drive it. There are peaks and valleys to each station's calls. But we are just at that point where money is so tight. We have eliminated chief's positions. We've eliminated administrative positions. We've put everything we have towards our daily response on the floor. We bent and we're now going to break. Again, I am here to educate and not advocate, so I'm telling you the facts. That's just where we're at. It's a horrible spot to be, not just for you. This is not what the message I want to deliver as a fire chief, but it's the raw facts. I can't tell you why nobody addressed this between 2006 and 2019. I was an engine company officer. I don't know, I wasn't involved in the politics. When I came into the office, it became very apparent very quickly that, oh crap, you've got to do something about this. COVID was a bad year to do it. 2024, we had our hopes up. 2026, we were making the message a little more raw. And we are just at that stage where we've got to staff more. In order, not only do we need to preserve the service, the level of service we have now, which I personally don't think is adequate. I would like for us to be able to offer a higher level of service. We have got to add additional capacity to the system. Next slide.
Sir,
Yes,
are you doing these outreaches in other communities
I am.
that are not
Yes.
on board?
Yep, I'm actually doing more on the east side of the district than I'm doing on the west side of the district. Our last one, we had one person. I will keep doing them. I mean, it's the way to get it out.
That's crazy that you would have to do this in your role.
Sorry,
That's not the way to run.
it's the rules. We're just following the rules. So we did have a slide about what this will cost you. So your current rate is $385. The levy we're $385 at $500,000 from assessed value. That would change to $600 a year annually, which is $32.09 a month. Sorry, $50 a month. Currently you pay $32.09, so it's about $18. That difference monthly. And again, borrow the points here on the bottom. We're going to maintain 24/7 Ohio EMS at all stations. We're going to replace those apparatus that have exceeded their lifespan. We're going to staff station 62 around the clock, and we're going to upgrade our aging facilities, most namely station 63 in Birch Bay. Scott Farrell, the gentleman who was here earlier, was talking about cancer. And I have to be careful about some of the things I say, but I'm passionate about one thing. Since 2018, Fire District 21 has lost 3 members to line of duty cancer. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to the state fallen firefighter memorial to put my friend Sean Ward, who was my division chief. His family's going to push him on the wall. We lost 2 in 2 years. Leslie Smith was a lieutenant and Division Chief Ward last year. Station 63 is an old station, and it's dirty. We've had an industrial hygienist come through it. They can't point to any one thing in particular. So as I said, we've lost 3 firefighters to line of duty cancer. We've got one retiree that's got that's the way it will be due to line of duty cancer. And then we've got one member, he and I graduated high school the same year. He's still working because he can't quit because he doesn't sit around home, but when he dies, it will be because of cancer as well. So we've got really 5 instances in the department. And station 63 is the common denominator between all those. There are things that department's trying to do. Some of it requires funding. If anybody's heard about something, chemical called PFAS, it's something that's a long public. It's actually prevalent over 2 firefighters here. We're trying to buy gear without it so that they're not sweating and then absorbing the runoff. But there's a lot of things that we can do better. But unfortunately, at all costs. So
Looking at that slide,
yes,
I have to ask you. Are you standing up there saying today that if this levy's passed, you're guaranteeing that the station 62 will be manned and open for salaried personnel? Are you guaranteeing that today?
yes, sir. Yep. If this levy passes, it will staff station 62.
You make that decision. You make it or the commission?
There's 2 here. I made the recommendation to them. They then voted on a resolution to put this levy on the ballot.
Okay.
So We're all holding on to the grenade. Yes, sir.
Yeah, first, let me just say, I strongly support your, levy with, efforts. With that said, I'm curious, the $500 a year, or $600 a year, I guess it is, for a $500,000 house. Is that number population neutral, meaning that if the population increases in our area, which my crystal ball says it's gonna happen, does that extra revenue then help support your baseline if you get this levy lift?
Yeah, so if I think I understand your question, and what the way it works is, like I said, the state of Washington has a 1% limitation per year that the budget can increase. So if you own a $500,000 home, your levy rate in 2027 will be $600. The next year, it would be $600 plus 3%. Now, new construction is added to that. And then the following year, this is going to get complicated, the following year, say it increases 2%, but you've got a number of new taxpayers on the roll, you could actually see your tax rate stay flat or even drop. If you were to go back, and you can go to the Washington County Assessor's website and pull up all your old tax bills, I'd be willing to bet that probably a third of you in this room would see that your tax rate to the fire district, not the overall tax rate, I'm talking about the single line, either stayed flat or was reduced because of increased population. Unfortunately, I don't know why government did this, but we made municipal finance so stinking difficult. It's
Schools too.
It's taken me years to figure out how to explain this, and I still don't have 100% confidence in it. Next slide. So the doom and gloom slide, what's it say? Levy failed, our apparatus continued to degrade from the process. That's the big. Station 63 seats a safe lifespan. Staff seems flat, whereas I talked about earlier, we could be short on certain days. Overlapping calls goes up. Your insurance rating continues to decline, or it's at risk, and the 1% limit continues to go into the budget. And I'll add, yes, sir. Station 62 will not be staffed if the levy fails. If the levy passes, our apparatus replacement's funded. Station 63, that project will be funded. Station 62 is staffed and responding. Like I said, it'll take a year. It'll take 12 months to get it for an engine and aid car to roll out of there 24/7. But we will get there. Improve response times, adding capacity to anything will improve response times district wide. And I've got a couple examples of that. Insurance rating, specifically for people in this area, will get much better. And the district will be actually positioned finally to move into the future and meet the needs of our growing community. I've talked about concurrent calls, station failures, those things. I want to bring up three incidences, in the last week. We've had 3 times where we've hit that station failure mark. Last Friday, it was the Birch Bay and Blaine station. They started going in calls at 8:30 in the morning. They flip-flopped all day long until between 8:30 a.m. and 10 p.m. They ran on 9 incidents, which doesn't sound like a lot, and it's not. 6 of those were transports, so they were transporting to and from Bellingham. 2 of those were complicated calls. One was a successful CPR call, so the crew goes with the paramedics with the critical location, which takes them out of service. The second was a call at the border, which are always complicated. There's always extenuating circumstances, and that patient was ultimately transported to the hospital. the patient also had an animal that was not a service animal, so the crew had to coordinate with the Walking Humane Society, and it was just kind of a big thing. During that 10-hour period, there was 2.5 hours where there was nobody. There was nobody. Okay. Right. There's no Lane and Birch Bay were both moving towards Bellingham or moving back from Bellingham. So there's an example of Sochi's total station failure. Last Wednesday, just a couple days ago, we had at the same time, within about a 30-minute span, we had 7 incidences going on between the Guide Meridian and north of Ferndale. So all 3 of our stations, Lane, Birch Bay, and Laurel, were over here on the west side, transporting patients to they responded, transporting patients to the hospital. We stole an 8 car from Ferndale. We asked for help from Ferndale. They came up, transported another patient. Then we had a critical trauma call over near the Loomis Trail area. Linden came out to handle that call for us. It didn't look like they were going to be able to for a while because they were on. Linden was also on simultaneous incidents, so they were able to break one of their 8 cars free to respond to that call. That whole time, all those patients, all those units are response and transporting to the hospital. There was, for 45 minutes, there was literally nobody north of Ferndale and west of Guide Meridian. There was no emergency response units whatsoever from any district, but we were at complete station traffic. Last night, yesterday afternoon, there was a number of aid calls. We then got a structure fire on Birch Bay Linden Road, a commercial structure fire. The first unit arriving was our battalion chief, which is the command officer for the district. He was there for 4 minutes before the next unit arrived, which was an aid car returning from transport. The 3rd unit arrived, aid car returning from a transport. So the battalion chief's now there with a fully involved commercial structure, himself and 2 aid cars. There was an aid car, the Blaine aid car was here in Semiahmoo, transporting a patient to St. Joe's. They dropped off their 3rd crew member at the Birch Bay station who grabbed a fire engine and responded by himself. And that was the first pumping apparatus. They arrived about 7 minutes after the battalion chief did, with 1 person. It's just now. I will say that's what we do, and a sick part of us likes it. We like the chaos, but when we can't help, it sucks, and it's very frustrating for the. Yes, ma'am.
Do you supplement your staff with volunteers?
We don't. We don't anymore, and we haven't for years because we were training people to get hired somewhere else. And it takes 12 to 18 months to get a firefighter up to confident and ready to do the job. And what we were seeing was they come through the training, they get their firefighter 1, they get their EMT, and Seattle will snatch them up, or Bellevue will snatch them up, or Redwood snatches them up. And so now we put all this time and money into something, and it's just we're not getting a return on the money. The last district in Western Whatcom County, South Whatcom, had the most active volunteer system. They've even gone away from it. It's just the other piece is that the number of training hours, the same paid or volunteer, doesn't matter. And as things changed and homes that could survive on one paycheck, and they were 2, most of the age of the person getting into firefighting, if they're married or they have a partner, their 3 jobs couldn't be job, and going to Monday night training and then going on calls is just not a priority. I will say I got into the fire service through volunteers. I was a City of Wayne volunteer. We went on 300 calls a year. It was something you could do it and still have a life, but 6,000 calls a year. Each of our stations has run about 1,500 calls a year. And it's just, it's hard to do. Yes, sir.
appreciate your outline of the outcomes. Presupposing that the levy passes. Do you have a proposed line item budget? If the levy passes, and if so, what is your shopping list? For the details of this money that would be provided for the district?
So, yes, I don't have like a 2027 if the levy passes line item budget, but I can tell you where the money is going for things. That is, so we did a feasibility study around Station 63. We had an outside firm come in. They presented us 3 options for what we could do.
Is that accessible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yep. The apparatus plan, all of it, these are all accessible, and I'm happy to, I can give you my card. You can email me, or you can look at the email the district directly. Yeah, happy to answer those questions. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question about fireworks in this area. Do you believe that fireworks should be banned in general in the district, or is that just not possible?
I don't know how much compliance we would get. I think in Semiahmoo, you could probably should get compliance for birthday. We don't have enforcement authority in the county.
Okay.
That lies with the sheriff's office and then specifically the fire marshal's office. I do know that there's discussion at county council about banning fireworks or extremely limiting their use when they can be used. Again, I don't know about the compliance.
Is it a concern that you have? I mean, would you favor the ban of fireworks?
Personally, I would. Jason, yes, he would. I can tell you that it runs our crews ragged. As the owner of a dog and a cat, yeah, I would advocate for that.
Yeah, animals don't like fireworks.
Yeah. You know, I 25-year-old Jason would have said no way. 54-year-old Jason that's seen enough fireworks accidents, yeah, I'd be all for it.
Okay.
But that is just my personal opinion. It would take the fire commissioners would have to discuss that. If we were going to do a resolution of support, that would come from our elected body.
Okay.
Any other questions that I can answer? Yes, ma'am.
I don't have a question. I just want to tell you all that sometimes hearing things don't make it happen faster. So I will tell you, about 4 weeks ago, I fell in my house. I could not do everything. I cannot tell you this story. My son, I realize now as I'm talking, I'm a New Yorker, so I have a big mouth. If you have anything that you want to tell me, don't worry about it. Just bring it forward. It took 25 minutes to get an ambulance to my house to get me to Peace Hill Hospital. Peace Hill Hospital, I am sure here and there, we've all been there. And we know that hospital, as this town is growing, not only for youngsters, but also for people like us who are getting older. Some of us don't remember, we have short-term Alzheimer's. This gentleman could go on and on, literally hours. But I am here to tell you that maybe we should all get together and start raising money just for this organization. And so we're living longer. We get around better. I'm 89 years old. And look at me at 89, I was outside as a showman before, he can tell you that I was doing everything. There's nothing I don't do anymore. I still volunteer, I do all of this, but we need the money to do it. This is a growing community. We're gonna grow longer, we're just gonna keep growing. And what's gonna happen is, like, where I come from in New York, our trains got better, our buses, there's just so much that we can do. We should really get together and start doing this.
That's the purpose of our meeting. Bring everybody together.
Thank
you. Thank you.
And so in turn, when you see our WTA bus, there's no reason why we can't have the buses coming and going. And it's there, we have it. You guys have it. You know what it's about. So if we all get together with this nice guy, we can do it. There's no reason why. Yes, I personally, I will start it. Whatever you guys want. I mean, 25 minutes for an ambulance, and I live on Bluegrass Way. I can walk from my house to the station.
Good job. Right. Good job.
So
Thank you.
you asked, we'll live, we will get it done.
Right. Very good. I like your bling.
I always with it, you know, I've lived here now 13 years, and I've lived here because my son works for Microsoft and he does AI or whatever that thing is. Don't ask me because I can't really use it sometimes. But it's totally amazing how people just something is. And let me tell you something, little kids. Fly from Brooklyn, little kids, look at that. And then you keep in my house, I've got every color, every.
Okay, so we have, we have this, meeting room until noon, of course. Does anybody have any more questions for the fire chief while we have him here? Are you finished?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, one thing you said that you were gonna have the levy plus construction. Does that mean like I remember from reading in the Lantern, like, 5 years ago when we were doing this, that you said there'd be, we could do something with the Birch Bay Fire Station, but we're still gonna probably have to have a bond to actually replace it. Would you clarify that? So that was old, that was the previous levy. This levy, we can fund if we do what's called councilmatic. Basically, if the board takes on the debt, we can make the payments for any of the three scenarios that the feasibility study showed, which is a simple remodel with expansion, or complete tear down and new building station system. The levy will fund it for the next 6 years. So we'll get to that point. Now, whether the district, the commissioners choose to send that to a bond later, you can do a bond and take over the debt of a project like that. But my recommendation, continue to fund it through the levy, so through the operating expenses. So we are not talking, and I'm not going to bring forward during this levy period, a proposition to bond out that station during this levy period. Thank you. Yep.
Which more questions in the back?
Yeah. So Bellingham doesn't respond here if the stations are all busy?
They do.
Oh, they will too.
Yes.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, last night during that fire, engine 12, which is 2 miles east of, the Lowe's on Sunset.
Yeah.
They responded to Blaine.
Yeah.
For, someone trapped in an elevator.
Wow.
So.
Do you feel like the poor relative here? Do you feel like the poor relative, like all your equipment and everything is in such bad shape? And this is in Miami. This is a beautiful place and yet you,
It's
Yeah.
embarrassing.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
We have one more question over here.
Yes, you mentioned the remodel of Birch Bay or as, because it's not gender aware, gender compliant. What about the other two stations?
The other station 61 with Lane, that was built in 2020. It's, I'll say good enough.
Yeah.
The next one that we will probably put some time and effort into further on down the road is our station in Laurel, which was it was a pole barn that got converted into a fire station. It too was set up initially for volunteers, but it had a better layout, and so the crews made it work. So,
With the one that's not open right now, or would, that's not staffed, that, where did it go?
it's still, it will be, we've got capital funds to be able to fund the remodel of that so that we can get people in there.
So it does have to be remodeled, like.
A little bit, yes. There's some addition, we need to put a exhaust capture system in the apparatus bay. There's some plumbing work that needs to be done. The water heaters need to be replaced. There's some HVAC issues that need to be, but it's structurally, there's no structural remodel. We're not moving any walls. So.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you very much, Chief, for coming in. Ready? So, for having Scott here. That was the other thing from him about, well, we run out of time, and everybody's probably ready to get out of here. It's a little bit stuffy in here. So we'll suspend, if it's okay with the board, we'll just suspend the other business part of the meeting. And, but remember, if you want one of these, we have 50 of them up here. And you're welcome to take one home complimentary, courtesy of the firefighter union. Okay. You can stay right along the walkway or you have my papers, and when you don't mind walking. I don't know. I'll pick up some on the way out.
And if anybody wants to have it, links to information that you can share with the community, just come and see me.